On the desert, nothing is ever truly still. The sand keeps shifting, oil still circulates under the ground, the wind carries the voices of old caravans. The sun burns the same way it did 1,000 years ago, but now it reflects off metal, not rock. Tracks cut through the landscape like new veins of the earth. Each one shines like a scar left by oil. Railways are becoming the new blood of the world. The Middle East is changing its heart from black to steel. The sound of a train is the new prayer, and its echo carries over the dunes and the sea. Where incense traders once stood, today engineers in helmets stand. Where camels once knew every stone, now algorithms calculate every kilometer. Locomotives race across the desert faster than the wind. The tracks slice the sand into neat parts, as if they wanted to put chaos into order. In Saudi Arabia, trains have Wi-Fi in the cab. In Dubai, they run without drivers. In Qatar, stations shine like palaces. In Israel, the train to Jerusalem passes through a tunnel longer than the history of the state. And in Egypt, along the Nile, old steam engines fade away like ghosts of empire. Every country has its own tracks, but they all lead to one goal: a future beyond oil. Railways are the new pipelines. Along the rails flow data, goods, people, hope. In Jordan, the old Hejaz line is coming back to life, linking the holy cities of Islam with modern ports. In Saudi Arabia, the GCC Railway, the Gulf Railway, is forming a steel ring around the desert. Egypt is tying Alexandria to the new capital to prove it is once again a center. Israel is sketching a link to Arabia. Tracks do not know borders. Politicians do. A train in the Middle East is not just a machine, it is a statement. Every line is a manifesto of ambition. Every station is a trophy. Every stop is a compromise. The rulers of the desert know the oil is running out, but movement never does. The tracks are a new form of life after the oil age. Metal arteries meant to replace pipelines. Instead of pumping black liquid, they carry electricity, people, and the idea of progress. In the shadow of the locomotives, a new politics is being born. Railways are diplomacy. A train that runs from Muscat to Riyadh carries more than passengers. It carries influence. China lays tracks, the United States tries to slow them down, India wants its share, Europe watches. Every rail line is a geopolitical front line. There are no bombs, there are tenders. There is no open war, there are contracts. But every train has a shadow, and every station has its forgotten platform. In Syria, tracks are swallowed by sand. In Iraq, trains stand in empty hangars. In Yemen, no train has returned since colonial times. In Palestine, the rails end at a wall. In the Middle East, railways are just as much a symbol of hope as of division. Some see a future in them, others see occupation. Rails connect, but they also separate. The Middle East is still wrestling with its own map. Lines run parallel but rarely meet. Tracks cannot change borders, but they can change the rhythm of life. The train becomes part of the everyday, like the caravan once was. For workers, it is a road to a job. For students, a road to knowledge. For pilgrims, a road to Mecca. For politicians, a road into a new legend. Railways are a sign that the world moves forward even when people remain in place. Underneath the ground, the oil still trembles. Its echo can be heard in every engine. It paid for these tracks. Every kilometer of steel is 1,000,000 barrels sold earlier to the world. The paradox is that oil is paying for its own funeral. But that is how desert civilization works. It knows how to turn death into profit. When oil runs out, Arabs start inventing the future. The sun reflects in the rails like in water. The air shimmers with heat. Locomotives wait in the shadow of mosques, ready to go. Every train is like a prayer, fast, firm, irreversible. In the desert, there are no road signs, only directions. East and west met here long ago, and now they are drifting apart again on parallel tracks. In the evening, when the wind drops, all you see are lines of light stretching over the sand. Red, green, blue dots run like falling stars. These are the new constellations of the Middle East, not on the sky map, but on the rails. Each one tells the same story. Oil brought wealth, railways bring meaning. The future no longer flows out of the ground, it travels. Once, the train was a weapon, not a symbol of progress, but of domination. Tracks did not serve people, they served borders. The Ottomans, the British, the French, each of them pulled their own lines across the desert as if they wanted to draw a map without asking the desert's permission. Steel was supposed to tame sand. The locomotive was a general. The whistle of steam sounded like an order. And when the train moved, it did not carry passengers. It carried control. In 1900, Sultan Abdul Hamid II announced the construction of the Hejaz Railway, officially for pilgrims, so they could reach Mecca more easily. In practice, for soldiers, so they could reach rebels faster. The line was meant to shore up an empire cracking from within. Damascus, Amman, Medina, the lifeline of the caliphate. Sand was turned into iron. Camels watched the trains like strangers. Along the tracks rose posts, mosques, wells, and forts. Railways became the religion of power. Every station was a prayer for obedience. The British watched this with jealousy. They knew the railway was a new land fleet. Wherever trains go, influence arrives. During the First World War, they began to undermine the line, blow up bridges, buy the loyalty of Bedouin tribes. Lawrence of Arabia was not fighting for land. He was fighting for rails. Whoever breaks the line, breaks the blood flow of empire. On the desert, you don't need a front, you just need to destroy the bridge. After the war, the tracks became borders. What had been one empire shattered into mandates. The French took the Levant, the British took Egypt, Palestine, and Iraq. Lines were cut like documents. Rails ended in the middle of the desert. Carriages rusted away. Stations turned into barracks. Railways stopped connecting. They began to divide. In Egypt, colonial trains ran. In Iraq, military ones. In Lebanon, freight trains with wine and copper for Paris. For the people of the desert, the train was both miracle and curse. It brought goods, but also taxes. It connected cities, but cut tribes. On every station, a clock tower marked the time of a new order. Mechanical time, not the time of prayer. When the steam whistle blew, Bedouins knew the future had just arrived, but not for them. After the fall of the Ottomans, rails remained like scars. They rusted, but did not vanish. New states grew along them. Their borders often followed the traces of old tracks. Railways were the map of division. Where the British rails ended, the French ambitions began. The desert became a negotiating table. Sand was the paper, iron the pen. In Jordan, fragments of the old Hejaz line stand today like monuments to empires. In Syria, like ruins of wars. In Saudi Arabia, like traces of a sacred mistake. In Israel, like a skeleton under the modern network. Egypt still runs trains on the same tracks laid by the British. The carriages are newer, the route is the same. History runs in circles. Colonial railways taught Arabs one thing. Infrastructure is power. Pipelines, tracks, roads, cables. These are the lines of modern empires. In the 20th century, oil became the new railway. In the 21st, railways return as the new oil. Instead of crude, data. Instead of tankers, passenger trains. Instead of ports, logistics hubs. But the logic is the same. Whoever builds the tracks writes history. In Dubai, trains run without drivers. In Riyadh, they are planning a line faster than planes. In Tel Aviv, tracks lead from bunkers to startups. In Cairo, Germans and Chinese race for contracts. New empires grow not from wars but from tenders. New colonies are lines of credit. New conquerors have no armies. They have banks. And rails once again stretch across the desert like the map of an undivided world. For Saudi Arabia, railways are an extension of Vision 2030. For the UAE, a logistics weapon. For Egypt, a symbol of modernization. For Israel, a piece of the security system. Every carriage has a different meaning, but the direction is the same. The East wants to catch up with the West, on its own tracks. For the first time in centuries, trains leave the station without asking empires for permission. But steel remembers everything. Every bolt, every rail, every bridge has its own ghost. Where once the Sultan stood, now an engineer stands. Where once there was a general, there is a transport minister. But the language is the same. Plans, maps, borders, budgets. A train is bureaucracy on wheels, mechanized power. When the machine starts moving, the world trembles. Because the desert still belongs to no one. It belongs to whoever lays the tracks first. In the Middle East, railways have always been a mirror. They showed who rules and who waits for the train. They showed whether the world is coming together or falling apart. Today, this mirror is shaking again. On the steel reflection, you see the sunset, the sand, and a man. He is standing on a platform with a ticket to the future. The train has not arrived yet, but you can already hear its voice. The desert does not know hurry. Wind, sand, and sun live by their own rhythm. But humans decided to break it. Where caravans once traveled for weeks, trains now cover the same distance in an hour. Tracks cut through the desert like a surgical incision in the body of history. Iron meets sand, concrete meets time. Locomotives race ahead, and their sound disappears into the hot air. On this land, movement has become a symbol of life. Whoever moves, exists. Arabs have learned a new alphabet, the alphabet of rails. GCC Railway, Etihad Rail, Haramain Express, Egypt High-Speed Rail, these are not just projects, they are manifestos. Steel prayers for survival after the oil age. Every kilometer is a challenge thrown at the desert. Every station is a declaration, we are still here. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Oman, Bahrain, and Kuwait want to link up in a single line. 2,100 kilometers. From Kuwait to Muscat, from the Gulf to the Red Sea. The tracks are supposed to become the new artery of the Arab world, not made of oil, but of ambition. In Saudi Arabia, railways grow alongside Vision 2030. The kingdom is building lines meant to carry not just people but also raw materials, containers, and ideas. The Haramain Express connects Mecca and Medina. It is a holy line, but its soul is secular. 300 kilometers per hour, air conditioning in every carriage, cameras in every station. It is not just a train, it is a manifesto of modernity. In a country where a journey between cities used to take days, today it takes 2 hours. Etihad Rail in the United Arab Emirates is an imperial project in miniature. The Al Dhafra Desert, Al Ain, Ras Al Khaimah, all linked by one steel nervous system. Freight trains are already running, carrying cement, oil, steel, and dreams. Speed is not important here, rhythm is. Every train is a symbol of order. The Emirates know that logistics is the new politics. Whoever has the tracks has the market. Whoever has the market has the future. In Egypt, railways are coming back like a pharaoh from his tomb. The first tracks were laid here in 1854, before Suez was a canal and before London became the capital of light. Today, Germans and Chinese are building a new network. 2,000 kilometers of high-speed rail. Cairo-Alexandria, Luxor-Aswan, the Red Sea, the Nile. It is a project meant to change both the economy and the psyche of the country. Egyptians say, "We were once the capital of the world, now we are heading that way again." Siemens trains race past the ruins of pyramids, and their sound bounces off the stone like an echo of the future. Israel also has its desert lines. The railway from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem is not just an investment, it is a symbol. 56 kilometers through rock, tunnels, viaducts, and history. A line that connects the center with the soul. On the drawing board, there is a route to Eilat, through the Negev, all the way to the Red Sea. If real peace with Arab neighbors were to emerge, these tracks could connect the Mediterranean to the Gulf. In practice, create a new trade route between Asia and Europe. In Jordan, the railway is like the memory of a dream. The old Hejaz line still runs through Amman like a scar. The rails are rusty, the bridges decayed, the stations crumbling. Steam locomotives rest in museums. But for older Jordanians, this is more than scrap metal. It is the memory of a world where everything was connected. Damascus, Medina, Mecca, Amman, Aqaba. Once you could cross the whole Middle East in one train. Today you cannot even cross some borders on foot. Jordan dreams of a new railway. With help from China and Saudi Arabia, it wants to rebuild freight routes. Lines are supposed to run from Aqaba to Iraq, from Iraq to Syria, and further on to Iran. It sounds like a dream, but on the desert dreams often become maps. Jordan has no oil, no gas on the scale of its neighbors, no big sea. It only has its location. And location is the most valuable currency in today's world. Railways are supposed to be a way to survive, a track from past to future. Desert railways are an engineering challenge. Temperatures hit 50 degrees. Sand creeps into valves, bolts, and joints. Rails expand by centimeters during the day. Trains have to breathe. Every bridge is a test of patience, every tunnel a negotiation with nature. But Arabs keep building. They know that tracks are the new oil, not dirty and sticky, but clean and precise. Once, oil united the region. Today, steel does. Instead of tankers, freight trains. Instead of pipelines, a logistics web. The Middle East is turning into one body. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Oman, Qatar, and Egypt want the tracks to become the spine of a shared economy. Data, goods, energy, everything in motion. Rails are meant to connect ports in Jeddah, Dubai, Sohar, and Suez. The desert is supposed to pulse like a living vein again. Each of these lines is a map of the future. You can't see it on political atlases, but you can see it in satellite data. A band of light running through the dark. Trains in motion look like binary code. 0 and 1, station and station, stop and start. It is the new language of the Arab world. Instead of oil, speed. Instead of mines, algorithms. Railways are digital infrastructure for an analog world. But in all this movement, the echo of the past still hides. Every line follows the old caravan routes. Every station rises where a market once stood. Every modern railway map resembles the map of old colonies. Only the flags have changed. Where once the imperial banners flew, now logos of corporations hang. Siemens, Alstom, CRRC, Hyundai, new empires have come with invoices, not bayonets. The desert has witnessed it all. It remembers the first stations built for pilgrims. It remembers the last trains that carried soldiers. Now it watches new locomotives taking engineers and business people instead. Only the ticket has changed. Paper was replaced by a QR code, the conductor by artificial intelligence. But the journey is still the same, from past to future, from silence to noise, from sand to steel. Every country in the Middle East wants its own train to tomorrow. Egypt builds on credit, Saudi Arabia on oil money, the UAE on ambition, Israel on technology, Jordan on hope. Each believes that its line will be the one that connects the world. But in reality, all the tracks meet in one point, in oil. Because oil paid for every single kilometer. The train moves across the desert. Sunlight reflects off the windows. The sand trembles under the rails. In the distance, you can only see a line of light. There is a driver in the cab, but he is not the one steering this journey. History is, tracks across the desert are not just a route. They are a process, a transformation that cannot be stopped. Every carriage is an era. Every station is a decision. Every kilometer is a promise. And so the Middle East is on the move again. This time without caravans, without colonies, without generals. With trains that do not ask for permission. With cities growing out of sand. With people who get on board, look out the window and see the future. Because the desert does not die, it only changes direction. And the rails are its new pulse. In Egypt, railways are a monument of pride. In Israel, a security tool. In Jordan, a memory rusting in the sun. 3 countries, 3 stories, the same sound, the rhythm of wheels over the desert. The difference is that each story runs in a different direction. Egypt looks at the past and the future at the same time. Israel looks inward, towards itself. Jordan looks towards hope. Tracks that could have connected the world end at borders no one can cross. Egypt was first. In 1854, the first railway line in the Middle East was built. The British laid it to move cotton to ports faster. Egyptians called it the Iron River. It flowed through the country like the Nile, only quicker. Within years, trains reached Alexandria, Cairo, and Suez. Towns, schools, factories, and palaces grew along the tracks. Railways were a promise that Egypt could be modern, that it did not have to remain just a cemetery of pyramids. But it was also a foreign promise. On the station walls hung portraits of Queen Victoria, not of the pharaohs. The railway belonged to the empire, not the people. When the British left, the tracks remained, but did not fit the new world. They were old, warped, colonial. Trains still ran, but no one was quite sure where they were going. Sometimes they stopped in the middle of the desert. Sometimes they went back along their own trail. In the 1980s, Egyptian railways became a symbol of chaos. Overcrowded coaches, broken tracks, ruined stations, accidents, fires, collisions. The railway became a metaphor for the state. Powerful, but exhausted. Now Egypt is building again. 2,000 kilometers of new lines, 60 stations, 15 cities. Germans, Chinese, Koreans. Everyone wants in. High-speed rail is supposed to link Cairo with the new capital, Alexandria with the Red Sea, the Nile with the future. Siemens trains race past the pyramids, and ministers call it the railway of the pharaohs of the 21st century. But in the shadow of that speed, the old line still stands. Trains from the 19th century still run on 19th century tracks with 20th century problems. Egypt lives at two speeds, 50 kilometers an hour and 300. Israel has a very different philosophy. For them, railways are armor. Every track is part of a strategic plan. Trains are meant to protect the country, not just connect it. The Tel Aviv-Jerusalem line is not just an engineering feat. It is a statement. Tunnels under the Judean hills go deeper than political borders. 56 kilometers through rock that remembers prophets. Israel does not build to unite people. It builds to respond faster. The railway is part of the national security system. Stations are fortresses. Passengers pass through scanners like at airports. Soldiers with laptops sit in carriages. Sensors track movement in tunnels. Israel plans a line from the center to Eilat on the Red Sea. Officially, for tourists and trade. Unofficially, to create an alternative to the Suez Canal. A railway across the Negev could connect Asia and Europe while bypassing Egypt. It is a political project. In theory, with regional peace, these tracks could connect the Gulf to the Mediterranean and become a new Silk Road, this time under Israeli control. On paper, peace. In reality, another race for speed. For Jordan, railways are a memory of empires. The old Hejaz line cuts through Amman like a scar. Rails rust, stations crumble, steam engines rot. But in the eyes of older Jordanians, this is more than junk. It is the memory of a world in which everything was connected. Damascus, Medina, Mecca, Amman, Aqaba. Once you could ride one train across the whole region. Today, you often cannot even cross one border. Jordan is planning a new network. With help from China and Saudi Arabia, it wants to rebuild freight links from Aqaba to Iraq, from Iraq to Syria, and further east. It sounds like a dream, but the desert has always turned dreams into maps. Jordan has no oil, no gas on its neighbor's scale, no big ports. It has only its position. Railways are meant to turn that position into survival. Rails as a lifeline between past and future. 3 countries, 3 visions. Egypt wants to catch up with civilization. Israel wants to control it. Jordan just wants to fit in. Tracks cut through their soil, but do not connect their people. Borders, politics, wars, all this means every train runs alone. Seen from a plane, you sometimes glimpse parallel lines of steel shining in the sun. And you see the irony clearly. Railways that were meant to connect have become a map of division. In the Middle East, everything is a metaphor. The train, too. Egyptians believe railways are a symbol of modernization. Israelis see them as a survival tool. Jordanians see them as the last breath of togetherness. They are all right. Each train goes in a different direction, but each pulls the same weight. History. Tracks remember everything. Empires, occupations, wars, deals. They remember dreams as well. When you look at the map of the region, you see a network that never really connected. Lines that end in emptiness. Stations waiting for trains that never arrive. But sometimes, at night, you hear an echo, the old sound of steel wheels. Maybe it is the memory of the Hejaz Railway, or maybe it is a sign that nothing ever truly disappears. Rails can rust, but the direction remains. Because even if Egypt, Israel, and Jordan are traveling in different directions, the desert they cross is the same. And in the end, it will be the desert, not people, that decides where those trains really arrive. The Middle East is on the move again, but this time it is not oil that drives it. It is steel, electricity, and speed. Where oil wells once burned, now tracks glitter. After the age of oil came the age of movement. And every country in the region is trying to board the same train, even if each one is heading somewhere else. In the first part of this episode, we saw how it all began. Empires drew borders with steel. Ottomans, Brits, French, they did not build roads for people, they built them for themselves. Colonial railways brought power, not hope. But their echo survived. Every modern station in Saudi Arabia or Egypt stands where generals and cartographers once stood. History in the Middle East never disappears, it just changes its name. In the second part, the desert spoke a new language. Tracks across sand became the arteries of a new economy. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Egypt, Oman, they all build as if they want to cover the desert with steel. Railways became the symbol of a post-oil era. Projects like GCC Railway, Haramain Express, or Etihad Rail are not just investments, they are political manifestos. Each line is a promise that the Middle East can stand on its own. Each station is a contact point between past and future. Each kilometer is a sign that oil does not have to be eternal for energy to survive. The third part showed that not everything can be connected. Egypt, Israel, Jordan, three countries with the same dreams and different routes. Egypt races between pyramids and new cities. Israel builds tracks like bunkers, fast, precise, protected. Jordan dreams of rebuilding what history destroyed. On the map, it looks like a network. In reality, like a maze. Lines come close but never touch. Borders are stronger than steel. And yet, everything that happens on these rails has a shared meaning. Railways are not just infrastructure. They are a story about survival, about how desert nations turn the past into movement, about how, in a place once seen as the edge of civilization, speed has become the new center. Because the Middle East has realized that oil was a gift and a prison. Railways are freedom. Every country builds in its own way, but all follow the same instinct: survive before the oil runs out, be ready before the old world leaves. Tracks across the desert are not just technology. They are therapy after an age of addiction to raw materials. Steel instead of oil, motion instead of stagnation, vision instead of nostalgia. And even if the trains of Arabia, Egypt, or Israel travel in different directions, they all pass the same dunes. The same dunes that remember caravans, the first Ottoman rails, and the wars over oil. The Middle East is no longer just a place where things end. It is a place where the world starts moving again.